to a special sit-down conversation on Budget 2026 featuring His Excellency, President Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali. My name is Kiana Wilberg, and I will be your moderator for today. Today's sit-down is quite special as it features an all-women panel. I will allow each of them to introduce themselves, starting with the lady on my right.
Thank you, Kiana. My name is Gina Arjun, and I'm Director of Fiscal Frontier and an economist by training.
Hello, my name is Iman Cummings. I am the president of AmCham Guyana, and I'm also the CEO of Wenkai Inc.
I'm Kathy Smith. I'm the president of the Georgian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I'm also the vice chairman of the Private Sector Commission.
And my name is Rasulina Rasul. I'm the head of the Diaspora Unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation.
Thank you very much, ladies. I want to kick off our conversation with His Excellency. Mr. President, Budget 2026 focuses on people, prioritizing people. But I want to hone in on vulnerable groups. How does Budget 2026 uplift the lives of vulnerable groups, particularly persons living with disabilities and children with special needs?
Well, first of all, let me say that a few months ago, or maybe weeks ago, I addressed the nation outlining a clear strategy for the next 5 years. And I made it very clear then that the focus will be on people. Now, everything we do in government relate to people. However, policy formulation is at a macro scale, and sometimes it's not understood at the level of the community. It's not understood at the level of different segments of the population. So in the next 5 years, you will see policies that are correlated directly to the changes in our economy, the changes in the lifestyle of our people, the changes in the community and society, and of course in the economy in general. So Budget 2026 is positioned with the people at the center. The measures are designed to ensure greatest impact on people, to ensure that the greatest level of economic wealth is directly attributed to the improvement of people's life, their living conditions, creating more opportunities for disposable income, and a higher quality of life. And this brings me to your question. Now, I can address all of the different social groups that will benefit from Budget 2026, be it the farmers, the women, young people, the elderly. Every segment of the Guyanese population is captured in Budget 2026 in a real way. Let's take the group you talk about, persons living with disability. What are the key challenges facing persons living with disability? Access. They need to move around the country. Access is an important, whether it's transportation, access to building, access to education, access to medical services, access to social services, access to recreational services. So we have ensured that in Budget 2026, that focus of improving access, giving access, accelerating access to all of these facilities for persons living with disability is invested into, so they can have a better quality of life. They can have a better standard of life. That is why you see we're talking about building out facilities, new standards of facilities, ensuring every government building has these facilities inside, ensuring that all our community and recreational facilities also are designed to give persons with disability an opportunity, building out the day and night care centers to ensure that parents, young families having to care for persons with disability, that they have an alternative in their communities directly that can help them take care of the people, of these people with special needs. But more importantly, ensuring that the persons living with special needs and those persons who are caring for them all have a quality lifestyle. So creating a community-focused, community care, and investing in building business opportunities out of this by creating spaces in every community, upgrading someone lower flat of their home. In Guyana, we say the bottom house. To have the facility where they can care for 10 or 15 persons, children, and then creating a network among parents. So you can have shared responsibility and shared support. The same we're doing for the elderly. And then building in our healthcare system direct support service for these families, for these individuals. And that is key also. How do we ensure that the services are directly helping them? Providing lower taxes for transportation, removal of taxes for transportation, putting persons permanently on the disability register, increasing those grants. All of those are ways in which Budget 2026 will accelerate, and it will continue to accelerate over the next 5 years, direct support for persons living with disability and other vulnerable groups. As I said, as the conversation go on, we can talk about indigenous people, how we are creating wealth in every community. Look, for example, the Guyana Digital School. That now supports learning from home from every single student. And we're going to build in that digital school a special platform that look at persons living with disability. Because it's not only about supporting in cash grant and supporting in facilities. It's supporting an entire ecosystem that gives them a better quality of life. And that is what it's about.
Mr. President, just to follow up on the second part of my question, and that pertains to children with special needs education. Now, that has been a central point of your government's manifesto. Can you talk about how Budget 26 starts to answer that promise?
So, we have a number of initiatives. Let's start with the special needs schools. So we're building out special needs schools in every single region. And these are modern schools. We are paying attention to paying teachers, not only paying teachers, but training teachers to deal with special needs children, because they take a different skill set, different level of patience. We are also employing more persons to provide support services in our school system. And just like people living with disability, we are also building out these facilities in every community. So we'll co-invest. Budget 2026 earmark resources to co-invest with persons. So we have a number of persons with degree in social services, for example, in special needs education. Here is where you can become an entrepreneur, where the government will support you by co-investing and you creating a special space for special needs children. And not only as a teaching institution, but a care institution. And in exchange for that co-investment, we expect you to have a rate that is affordable from all parents. So it's accessibility again. It is bringing structure to it. It's bringing predictability to it. Children and the parents too. Sometimes one of the parents, you may have professional parents with children that require special needs and special need education. One of that parent would have to give up their professional life, sometimes to take care of that kid full time. Just give both parents to pursue their professional life, knowing that the system is being built to take care of their children in a safe environment. So that's an example, for example, outside of, again, the grants, about the direct support in terms of disability benefits, special needs support for children. And as this evolves, remember we also have the special incentive for second job. But as this evolves, we're looking at a system that incentivizes the expenditure that a family would have to utilize to take care of these children, who are special in every single way. They're special to all of us. And in the 5 years ahead of us, you will see how this policy will continue to evolve. But in 2026, it's important for us to set the infrastructure, set the foundation and the basis through which this build out at a national scale. And that is what 2026 budget does for special needs children, persons living with disability, and the elderly. It gives us that accelerated impetus now to build out at a national scale this support mechanism for these groups.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Arjun?
Yes, so Mr. President, you brought up a very critical point and you touched on opportunities for entrepreneurs, and I think that is really dear to my heart. With the growth of the oil and gas economy, but more so the growth of the non-oil and gas economy over the past couple of years, we're talking about construction, agriculture, tourism, transport and logistics. The opportunities are there. But having started my own business, and I think a lot of people can testify to this, is that access to finance really hits us in the face when we're ready to get started. So I want to learn a little bit more about what Budget 2026 provides to SMEs.
And that's a very important point. And I have some direct extracts also from the budget. It's an important point from many perspectives. Historically, and it's also always a function of finance. When we did not have oil and gas, previous People's Progressive Party civic government invested in different ways. You had fiscal incentive to promote home ownership. When we had special tax incentive for low-income loans, investment in infrastructure to make home ownership easier, not only by reduced costs of financing, but by having starting from 90% of all lands allocated to the low-income families. So creating wealth by home ownership. But our society is evolving now, as you rightfully said. Many young people coming out with a degree, they want to start their own business. But they're faced with the challenge in today's economy. How do we get that initial seed capital? We don't have the collateral, the tax system, the interest rates are very high for startups. You know that when you look at some of the financial institutions and you look at the total cost, sometimes these small startups would pay 14% interest on all of these things. So we designed what we call the Guyana Development Bank. The Guyana Development Bank in Budget 2026 provide the first set of resources for the establishment and deployment of this institution. But what does it address? It's not only about access to that seed capital. It's also about how do we utilize the leverage of this seed capital now to unlock more resources. So the bank is going to give you, for example, let's say $3 million as your seed capital, interest-free and collateral-free. So that is the first thing. You now have opportunity with a good business plan, and I know you'll follow up on that, with a good business plan to have the opportunity now to earn your first loan without collateral and interest-free. We have also negotiated with the commercial bank, leveraging that $3 million to unlock another $20 million with the same fiscal incentive like the low-income borrower. So that if, for example, your project is $20 million, you get $3 million from the development bank. The $17 million you will now get unlocked with low collateral requirement and interest rate that is less than 4%. So you're going to save, you're going to first get this loan that is interest-free and collateral-free, and that will leverage now a loan that you could have never gotten before at the interest rate that will be about 7 points below what you would have paid having a commercial loan. And all of you ladies would have been investing, you know how this works. So I don't know if I brought some clarity.
No, that's exciting news. But I mean, access to that finance is one thing, but I think managing it is another. And I think business plans are important, and I don't think everybody has that capacity. And then furthermore, when you're granted that loan, is managing your finances, learning about cash flow, budgeting planning, pricing, and all these things. I think the end goal really should be sustainable and scalable businesses. So I think we need to ensure that it somewhat goes hand in hand with some sort of support for that aspect to ensure that you really don't default on your loan and you build a good credit culture, because I think we need to go beyond. We need to start thinking beyond that 20 million.
100%,
Yes.
and you have hit the nail on the head. That is why the difference with the development bank now is that we have what you call pre-clearance and post-support. So we're not only going to make these resources available, we are now going to put together a technical group that will start by helping you to assess your idea. Forget about business plan. You may have an idea that I can sell this product and make money. That idea is then assessed with you. It is further developed. It is questioned, is inquired into, and then that moves to the development of a business plan. So we have a technical team that is part of the development bank, that is the most important team, that will help these individuals first to understand the basics of business, the basics of setting your financial goals and targets and managing your finances, but more importantly, developing your idea, coming up with a business proposal, and then helping you to present that business proposal. It does not end there, because that is all well and good. But after the loan is granted, we have a team that now take you post-loan in a hand-holding exercise to ensure that you're staying on track, to ensure that they help to monitor and evaluate what you're doing, to ensure they provide that management expertise, that technical expertise
So it's
to
a
help you
full
with.
incubation system.
It's a full incubation, but more than an incubation system. It is a financial architecture that support resilience and sustainability in the business development model. That is what the development bank does. So it goes beyond that into providing this. So it unlocks resources, give you first-time access, integrate the support, technical support services, entrepreneurial training, budget training, managing finances, and then the hand-holding exercise in making your business successful and working with you to ensure that critical decisions and critical support is provided for critical decision. So you may have, let us say my business is to package to package some fruit, and then I'm met with, as soon as I open the business, there is a drought and the fruit is not available. That type of support, unlocking that technical support that would ensure the success of your business, because at that point you might need to change your procurement plan, you might need to change your source market, and that support is going to be there to help throughout this process. Just giving an example.
Thank you. Ms. Cummings?
I think that you've outlined the key measures that would really drive sustainable development here in Guyana. Guyana is widely, as we all know, recognized as the fastest growing economy in the world. It's the buzz in every boardroom in Guyana and diaspora. And I think one of the issues that come up is this topic of inclusive growth. How do we get young people, how do we get Guyanese to be a part of this, to have equity in this growth? And those measures that you outlined there with the Development Bank, and reducing hurdles such as collateral and high interest, and even the resources and support that are really needed to build a business and to maintain it, like you said, Gina, are important. I want to go back. I don't want this to be overlooked, Mr. President. I want to touch on what you mentioned about the community-led daycares and centers. I think that's extremely important. And that touches on a personal note for me. I was actually a teenage mother, and I went to school in Canada. But the only way I was actually able to attend university, I didn't have the resources at the time to pay those, inflated daycare costs.
So you have the resources now.
But I got the resources now, and a lot of young people, hopefully not too many teenage mothers as well, but a lot of young people will be able to tap into that here in Guyana. That is what allowed me to be able to go to school, because the government there was able to co-invest, subsidize daycares and centers to a certain degree. And that will change the game here in Guyana for a lot of women, single mothers, and young women. So,
But I just want to add, I think it will change the game for community. I think all of the evidence out there leads towards these types of community-led development initiatives. So
Absolutely.
I think it also leads to a broader picture of equality in the country.
Absolutely. I also want to touch on disposable income. Going back to that inclusive growth, going back to, Guyana being the buzz. People want more money in their pockets.
Well, first of all, Iman, I want you to know, and you're an inspiration to many young women. So, and it tells the depth of someone, character and love for community, when you can give your personal experiences and how you're able to champion that and become such an enormously successful person in our country and globally. But I want to say, and it's young women like you guys also, we're looking to help us, because this is about all hands on deck and how we use your experience and your portfolio to build smaller portfolios. Take, for example, just coming off of the question, you have one of your biggest problems in the restaurant business is prep. Now, you can create a number of small businesses by developing these small kitchens with the standards. And all they do is prep the seasoning, and restaurants can go and pick up their prep material there. You save time and everything. And you create a business opportunity out of that. So it's that hand-holding exercise. And that is why in front of State House we have a demonstration shade house that will show people how you can convert $300,000 into $1.8 million annually. And that is the type of work that we'll be doing together on this. But you asked a very important question, because many people in the budget, they look, okay, yes, all of these plans are great, but how does it affect my pocket? And Budget 2026, like so many other budgets, speak directly to the issue of cost of living, which I'll come to a bit later. But let me address your issue particularly. And there are different ways in which you increase disposable income. Cash transfers to a vulnerable group is important in any society. Important. But it is not the answer for national growth and development. So what are we doing? So let us look first of all about the first issue, that's direct cash transfers to household, which means more money in your pocket, more household income. Whether it's the persons who are never in the labor force, like the mother at home, who is now a part-time worker, that will earn $50,000 per month. That actually can repay your low-income repay your low-income loan at the bank, and still give you $20,000 in your pocket. And that was never in that family. That cash was never there with that family. So you have those examples. But let's look first at direct cash transfers to household. You have the national cash grant that will go to every citizen, and that is $60 billion. You can look at it as $100,000 per person, 18 years and above, but the cumulative effect of that is pumping $60 billion into the pockets of persons, into the economy, into families. So that's the first one on the cash transfer category. Then you have the Because We Care cash grant. That is now moving to $60,000 per child. 206,000 children will benefit from this transfer. Moving to 60,000, 206,000 children would benefit from this. That's about maybe $12.4 billion, in excess of $12 billion. That's 60 and 12.4. That's $72.4 billion already of direct cash transfer. Then you have the annual transportation grant. This is now what we're introducing. The annual school transportation grant. That is $20,000. That's another $4.1 billion. So 60, 72, you're already at $77 billion with those three measures alone. $20,000 transportation grant. Then you have the one-off cash grants for a newborn. That is $100,000 for every new baby. $100,000 for every new baby. Then you have the old age pension that is going to $46,000 per month now. That is an annual cost of $52 billion of transfer to our old age pensioners. $52 billion of transfer to our old age pensioners. Then you have the annual transportation grant now that we're introducing to old age pensioners. That's another $20,000 per person. And then you have the public assistance program that is going to $25,000 per person. That's another $14 billion. So you're talking cumulatively about more than close to maybe $150 billion of cash transfer in a country with less than 1 million persons going out there. But addressing children, the elderly, the vulnerability that exists, and then persons 18 years and over, and even a newborn, which is vulnerability for some mothers in that initial couple of week expenditure.
Right.
So that is the first the disposable income you're talking about, more money in people's pocket. Then let's move now, and that is under the category, I will say, direct cash transfer. Let us move to tax relief, which tax relief is more money in your pocket, taking home more money. The income tax threshold, we already moved it to $130,000. We are now moving that to $140,000 in budget 2026. That is removing 5,000 persons from the tax register right too. That is removing 5,000 persons from the tax register. And that is putting billions of dollars, additional dollars, into the economy, into people's pocket directly. So you're going home with more money. So if you're working 140,000, you have no taxes. You take that home, straight home. Then you go to the removal of net property tax. Now you're all business people. Personal property tax on individual, net property tax on individual. You know this is a big deal. What, 7 point something percent? The removal of that. So so when you look at tax relief measures, I'm not even telling you as yet about the vehicles, making vehicle easier, vehicle ownership easier, because now you have complete tax write-off on the electric vehicle. You have fixed tax now on double cab open back, which is a productivity vehicle for productive use. So you're saving, who buying that is saving between $10 to $17 million. You have special incentive now for the vehicles 1500 cc and lower. The VAT is removed from that, right? And then you have the hybrid vehicle special incentive regime governing that. Then you have wages increases and income support program. You have the part-time job program that will now pay $50,000 per month. You have the community service officers, the CSOs in the hinterland, and that is thousands of persons employed there, moving from $40,000 per month from $30,000 per month to $40,000 per month. You have the community policing groups. They had a stipend, and some of them were not given any stipend. Some were given a small stipend. Now they will have $50,000 every month. So this is direct injection in wages and salary. I'm not talking about the salary increase for public servant, the type of other support that we give there. Then you have the education cost savings for parents. If you have cost saving on education, it's more money in the parent pocket. You have the government paying for 8 subjects CXC. You have the National School Feeding Program, free education at university, the Gold Scholarship Program, the Hinterland Scholarship Program. This is tens of thousands of children, hundreds of billions of dollars that you would have otherwise paid for these services that you're now saving to your, and adding to your disposable income. And that is why now someone will complain and say to you, why? It's a little expensive to fuel up the car this month. But that same person a year ago did not have a car.
True.
So they're not calculating that improvement in their own lives. And then when you get the car, you no longer want to walk from Carmichael Street to Main Street to go to the supermarket. You want to drive, right? So it's this changes in living condition and style also. So with increase and improvement in that disposable income, you will see structural changes. You know this, those who are in restaurant, fast food, or fine dining business, you will see more people going out to eat. That is not accidental. That's a function of disposable income giving you the opportunity to experience something that you would have never experienced before. Cost of living relief measures. Let's look at that also. You have the maintaining of the 0% excise tax on petroleum products. So we have not, although the price may fall. So on one hand, you're receiving less per barrel of crude oil. On the other hand, we are not, and so you're importing at a cheaper cost. We are not adjusting that 0%, which means that hundreds of billions of dollars in this measure alone is saved from the consumer. And then you have the maintaining of the freight charges to pre-pandemic level. You know this, the impact of that. That's tens of billions of dollars of saving every single year. And then we have direct allocation of $9 billion to address costs of living issues. And that is direct allocation. Then you have the low cost, as I said, of vehicle ownership and transport. And you have the introduction, we introduced a flat tax on double cab pickup, which is $2 million and $3 million depending on the CC. The removal of VAT on new vehicles below 1500 cc. We have the removal of VAT on hybrid vehicles below 2000 cc. We have the removal of all import duties and taxes on ATVs. We have the removal of taxes and duties for outboard engines exceeding 75 horsepower. So who does this affect? The small farmer, the man with a small speedboat, right? The double cab, who use it? It's ordinary people in the productive sector. Then you have the low cost of home ownership and housing. Increased low-income mortgage ceiling from 20 million to 30 million. Right? So that covers almost all the young professionals. Extending the 30 million low-income mortgage ceiling now to all commercial banks. We have now the housing improvement subsidy of $7.5 billion that we're putting there to help people in home ownership, and then the issuing of 7,000 new titles and transport. Then the eighth aspect is support that boosts household earning power, jobs, enterprise finance, establishment of the Guyana Development Bank we just spoke about, the initial 100 million US capitalization, the removal of corporate taxes on agriculture and agro-processing, hundreds of billions of dollars in savings, creating a tax haven for agriculture and food production, leading to food security. Expand export allowance to include timber value-added products. So we're not only talking about value creation, we are planning for the future. So you have, for example now, the low cost of energy is going to put more people into value creation. We are planning for that. By allowing now the allowance for export to timber value-added products. Remove VAT on locally produced furniture. So now we're going to remove VAT on locally produced furniture so we can be more competitive in the Caribbean. We want that whole industry to be revitalized. Remove VAT on locally produced jewelry as we build out the orange economy. No VAT on locally produced jewelry. Remove duty and VAT on security equipment. And the private sector, this is one of the things that they would have raised. Co-investment support for child and elderly care facilities. Not only the service, but providing business opportunity. The removal of corporate tax on companies providing child and elderly care services. That's important. So you can start a company now knowing that there will be no corporate tax once you're providing services for child and elderly, whether it's rehabilitative care, which is a big market globally. No corporate tax. And that also target persons living outside of Guyana. And then the PWDs. Support 1,200 PWDs to be upskilled and trained. Now, important to all of this, though, is the fact, and you must not ever avoid this fact. Inflation is driven by internal and external factors. So, we have a concept called imported inflation. That an imported inflation is addressed through tax waivers, direct subsidies, like I've just outlined, and then of course you have inflation that occurs within the country itself. And if you look at our inflation ratio, it's the lowest, well, maybe the lowest in this part of the world, and among the lowest in the world. And every single financial institution has commended Guyana on the management of its inflation in this high growth, high intensity phase of development in our economy.
Thank you. Very comprehensive response there, Mr. President. Ms. Smith?
I don't want you to go back there, Mr. President, but just an observation. I want to believe that, talking about cash transfer, that Guyana might be one of the few countries in the world that is able to take care of our people from birth to retirement and beyond. Because if you listen to everything that was mentioned just now as it relates to how cash would be passed on, we're in about infant, we're in about retirement, and of course beyond. So I'm excited for our country. I just wanted to say that. But just like Gina, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a female contractor, and we have always been getting scrutinies, heavy scrutinies as to why the roads sometimes there are delay in the building of the roads. Some of the standards are not really met when they compare it to overseas roads that are being built. But when you do a deep dive, Mr. President, we have noticed that last year alone, around 3,500 small contractors were able to capitalize on building out community roads. And I'm saying to myself, why did the government decide to choose those small contractors? Why not say to ensure that we speed up the development of Guyana? We can bring in international contractors, or right here, let the large contractors do the work. But why these small contractors that are now getting their feet wet, so to speak? Why did you invest in those?
So that's an important question. We can have everything about development outsourced, or we can take a conscious decision to build our own capacity, and with that come risk, but tremendous opportunity. Create our own entrepreneurs and have most of the resources recirculated in our economy itself. Or we can just go and outsource everything. Tomorrow you can bring two big companies that will build out all of the community roads. How do we build capacity? How do we improve and upskill our own people? How do we create wealth? How do we create economic opportunity for new businesses? And that is the model we have embraced, because we want more Guyanese to participate in this development. We want more Guyanese to own things. We want more Guyanese to become prosperous. And with this capacity building, greater ownership. And if you look, you're doing, let's say, $400 billion of work. 5 billion might have these difficulties, but nobody's looking at the 495, and you know this. So if we did not take this approach, you would not have developed. So many other women-led businesses today would not have developed. So it was a deliberate approach to create wealth, enable opportunity, build capacity, and to build a wider, what I would call spread of wealth creation and economic opportunities. Now, to add to this method is the local content legislation. The same argument we can use. If we did not have the local content legislation today, thousands of local businesses have developed. And Gina, you were part of that. Thousands of local businesses. Emmanuel will tell you that they interact with, and you of course, thousands of small businesses, many of which are women-led today, that would have gotten an opportunity, or we say in Guyana, a break in life, because of that one policy. So too, many of these small contractors are now having, to the extent that all of our workers who are in Barbados, Antigua, all are coming back home now, because it makes more sense at the rates at which they're earning here. But the bigger question is, how do we make this sustainable? How do we now create avenue through which the investment is made in a diversified portfolio to create wealth? That is why investment in agriculture, light manufacturing, value creation. So it's using this stepping stone to reach further in the economy. And when you look at the growth of our economy, 14% non-oil, that alone tells a story. And what are the highest growth in a non-oil economy? Lending, and look at the lending from the banks. The highest growth is in agriculture, agro-processing, followed by, guess what? Manufacturing and services. So the message is getting through. The policies are working. And then when you look at who are borrowing, it is a massive number of new borrowers and every segment of the Guyanese population. So that is a trend you have to look at. And then are these people able to repay their loan? Guess what? In 2019, non-performing loan was 11%. Today it's less than 2%, maybe 1.1%. That's the figure now. And let's take a step further. You may ask, because it's riskier to lend in these new sectors, what is the capital adequacy ratio? Is it deteriorating? We're still not even utilizing half of what is the standard and where we can be. So that tells you a story of sustainability, resilience, wealth creation. That is why we've adopted that policy.
And something I've noticed, Mr. President, that
But maybe if I can, in this discussion, if I can ask you, Kathy, can you, maybe it's good feedback for us too, how has this policy helped young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs from your perspective in the Georgetown Chambers?
I can tell you my story, and I think that would be very authentic for a person to understand. I have started business in 2019 and with a regional partner, and it did not went well. For whatever reason, that relationship had to come to an end, and a bitter end, if I may. But what I was able to do in just below 2 years, I was able to get into a business by myself, brand new business. And me and my team decided to start to turn up our doors. And when we were turning up our doors, particularly in the private sector, a lot of people didn't want to trust us to do business with us. But we decided, you know what, let's tackle all the ministries. And when I started to go to the ministries, you're hearing things like, oh, I heard your name before. I heard what your company was doing. Oh, we have this project here. It's within this figure. Maybe you can bid for it, or maybe we can make an approval for it there. But the government, the ministry took risk with us. And then when the private sector started to see what we are doing with the government, then a lot of private sector individuals start to come on board. So sometimes I say to my membership, we are in competition with the government, whether we like it or not, as it relates to building out our private sector. We are in competition because the government now, and I like to use this term, well, not tit for tat, but you know, they're foot with us as we are getting the work done in the private sector. And we have decided to start measuring the membership growth at GCCI. We are a large base of micro, small, medium-sized enterprises. In fact, over 70% of our membership are women base. Like about 2 years was around 46%. We have seen that number for women-owned, women-led companies being pushed to 50% in total of GCCI. And when you look at them, most of them are doing government projects. The private sector projects, it's coming, but they're coming slow. And majority of the new members that are joining, they're women. And guess what? They are women in construction. They are building every little thing that you can think about building. Some of them said to me, Kathy, I'm cleaning drains. I am doing weeding and cleaning of government land. I am doing small roads, community projects. So it's an excitement for us, I think, for small businesses, particularly for the women. And I want to push a little bit here. I know one of the things that we were trying to protect, even at the private sector level, when we talk about maybe putting aside projects and percentage of contract for women, we were cognizant, Mr. President, that some of those businesses might be under the cloak of a man owning that business, but might want to push the wife or the female partner, right? So we were cognizant of that. But what we have seen is that actual women who have never had somebody invested in them before are turning up on project. So what I would love to see support, I know this is already happening, if we can say, you know what, for the women in especially in construction, if we can put aside some percentage of contract for them, but those are the women that are authentic, there's nobody behind them. Those are the single mothers. Those are the women who are in, let's say, working for a construction company and decide, you know what, I want to work on my own. So those type of women.
And definitely, as we have the modernization of the procurement system and the layers and levels we're talking about, those are the type of discussions that we will have. That budget's 2026 pointer. But Gina, you trigger me to ask Gina a question, because it's good for you guys to speak a bit about your experience too. Look at the local content law that you were you so closely associated with. If you could give us your own experience and people around you as to how this law was and this policy was able to unlock opportunity for persons, and how people are actually making use of those opportunities from a government-led policy.
So, Mr. President, prior to wearing the hat that I wear now, I worked with the Center for Local Business Development, who worked with over 5,000 businesses, small businesses, and almost every single one of those businesses were able to benefit from some sort of work through the oil and gas sector because of that local content legislation. I think it was an important piece of legislation. And I myself, I think because you're a locally owned company, you're given opportunities that I think that sometimes you otherwise might not have been afforded on, just because you don't have that reputation developed with these oil and gas companies. So they don't tend to trust you. So I think that legislation forces them to work with you. And I think we've lived up to their standards, because you can see them not only using businesses that are set out within that schedule of the prescribed services, they are using businesses outside of that schedule, locally owned businesses, that is. I think importantly, however, and I mean, I'll ask about what are the plans here in terms of the local content legislation, in terms of extending that schedule, but not only extending that schedule, but looking back at what defines a locally owned business, or what criteria is used for that local content certificate, just because I think as Guyanese businesses grow,
Avoid abuse.
not only the abuse, but I think on the other hand too is that you've got genuine partnerships. You've got some not so genuine partnerships as well. You've got genuine partnerships, and you need that support for more technical areas, so to speak. So yeah, but let's hear from you.
What's important, Gina, that you mentioned that how do we move from this level, which is important. That tells us, listen, we started, it's working here, and now we are in a position to go to the next level. We are ready for that. So now we have to examine the local content areas of focus. For example, fabrication, welding, machining services, and even some of the marine type services. We have grown enormously, and that should be captured under the local content legislation. Insurance, financial services, and then the type of partnership that we want to create, whether it's supply boat. If we can create supply boat that has a local content aspect to it, that generate more income for Guyanese and give them ownership. So you're correct, and that is what is next phase of development. We wanted to do that last year. Elections was there. We don't want to be accused of anything, but now, in the first quarter of this year, we'll see a lot of that work on that local content, this expanding that and so on. So you're right on track with what we're doing. But Iman, you know, as someone who has been around investing heavily, taking heavy risks in the economy, from your perspective in the last 5 years and now, how has the investment climate improved? What are some of the things that you think is driving the confidence that you are seeing, or the confidence that you have in investing in the economy?
Well, I could tell you that, you know, having been in the franchising business for maybe 12 years now, one thing that franchises look for is reliability, right? We recently brought one on last year, and we had been behind for quite some time. And you know, in those negotiations, one of the things that they kept pointing towards was that the investment climate, and they were confident and they trusted the investment climate. So I think that there's certainly more confidence from in terms of foreign investment and from companies outside looking to get into Guyana. And people, like I said, people can see the companies, the CEOs. There's opportunities within the diaspora. There's not a day that I don't talk to somebody who might be away, a friend, a colleague, who's saying, I'm really looking on what's going on. They're excited. They want to get in. The time is now. So. And
being also leader of AmCham, Georgetown Chamber of Commerce from the private sector, and Rosalinda, of course, interacting with the diaspora every day. Investor confidence is important in any economy. And not only confidence in the economy, but confidence in the policy making frame. That's what people don't understand sometimes. If you don't have predictability in policies, so you can see a systemic approach to policy formulation in Guyana, graduating to where we want the country to be. That's a high value economy with high value jobs and high value opportunities. and we're going to come to some of that. But I'm happy that you
And
can.
even if you take a look, I mean, at the BSO level, right? If you look at your membership, I'm sure that's been increasing, and that's a direct sort of signal. You know, there are more businesses coming on stream, joining, both local and foreign. So,
And up to this morning, I met with some investors from Kuwait, and despite they hear the conversation that there is an issue with labor, because they themselves want to come in and do some work in real estate, they want to do some construction work and so on, they were still happy that they can come to a country that is saying to us that, saying to them that we don't have all, but this is our plan. Because the gentleman said to me before he came to Guyana, he went on Google and he started to Google the policies that Guyana have in place for the particular sector. And he said that alone, he was so excited. So he said when persons were saying you're not going to find the workers, he said, but we saw the policy. This is what they plan to do in the next 5 years. So it means that the people is going to come because the policy are there. So I think those are things that people need to hear. You know, they need to hear that, you know what, we are a nation building out right now. So look at the policies, look at our plans, look at our strategies. Don't deter investors. You know, show them, direct them towards that.
Thank you, Ms. Marceau.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. President, I am very grateful for this conversation because a lot has been said about development within Guyana and what is there also for different groups and categories of people. Listening to you all the time are a large number of people outside the shores or the perimeters of this country. They're very excited and very interested in what's going on. As of Thursday, I've been getting so many calls for copies of the budget, actually, and I've had to remind them the budget is not yet released. You will get a copy once it's available. And that's because they're seeing from the outside what is happening in Guyana in all of the sectors. I've sat here quietly and I've listened to all the sectors, several sectors being outlined by you in what persons can expect in the 2026 budget. The diaspora is hugely interested in Guyana. We've engaged them, so many engagements every year. Your Excellency has engaged them directly on your trips as well. And you get inundated with so many interests, basically. I can tell you from where we work, we've seen significant increases in requirements for documentation, interest in persons remigrating, interest in persons that are interested in diasporic investments and skills transfer, which is a crucial thing for Guyana at this point in time. Could you walk through with me, Mr. President, and some other critical areas where the development is taking place and plans in the 2026 budget is going to excite the diaspora even more? So, for example, in healthcare, in infrastructure, in education, and in social services, well, you've done a lot with that, and in public service, that accountability in terms of procedures and systems that are in place. I think these are very important to the diaspora, and they're watching to see what's happening in these areas. So from then, they get that opportunity and the direction which they want to go.
Well, I think you're correctly assessing the impact of the diaspora. But let's look at some foundational issues. The diaspora for us want to know that they can come back in a safe society, in a society in which they can trust the healthcare system, and in which they can trust the education system for their children. Today, the investment that we're making in safety and security has really given us tremendous payback. You know, we have our lowest recorded crime. We want to keep it that way. We're able to detect in a predictable way crime. We're able to plan in a more strategic way based on data, hotspots. We were able to apprehend people faster. Look, yesterday there was something in one of the parks in Windsor Forest. Within 2 hours, the police had the persons. Right? We're seeing now the deployment of the cameras that is already helping tremendously in road safety. So that's the first thing. The second thing is healthcare. We're now building 6 new regional hospitals. We're going to make, some are going to be level 5. They get service, still get service there, they're not even getting where they are. Right? And the healthcare is getting worse wherever they're sitting. And they know that. This is a healthcare system that's getting better. We're investing in more nurses, doctors, specialization. So we're making that infrastructure investment. So they're coming into the healthcare system, and they say this, that it's far different from when they left it. And that is more aligned and in some case surpass what they expect or what they're what they're getting now in their own communities, societies, and country. The third is education. We are game changing education. Using AI, digital school, our education system is being pegged now at international benchmark, the Oil and Gas Institute, an international standard technical and hospitality training institute, the building out of all of these technical institutes, nursing home, nursing schools. So education, they're getting that opportunity, free gold scholarship, free university education. Then they have all the remigrant benefit that we already give them from the tax side. So the next big question is, okay, my home. And that is a big question. We can't service all of the diaspora housing requirement from the Ministry of Housing. Just like they went overseas, they have to appreciate the fact that when you return home, you have to buy from the private sector. You may have to rent for the 4 or 6 years. You can't return and expect that you're going to walk into a house. So you may have to rent back to own, just like you would have migrated and went through a phase of development. And then it's the opportunities that are here. Whether you're a doctor, nurse, yes, the salary might not be where you are over there. Quality of life has a value. The propensity to save has a value. And we know that it's only going to get better. We know that it's only going to get better. When you start to do some forecasting, look at the income tax threshold of 140,000 now in 2026, and you do some forecasting, we might be outpacing ourselves in terms of that threshold limit pegged at US dollars in many developed economies. So that's the third thing, home ownership. I address jobs. Then what are the opportunities? Yeah, so you have many Guyanese over there who have worked all their life and they have the certification in elderly care. Here's the opportunity to come here now. The government will even co-invest with you. You have the opportunity now to have tax-free earning because we're removing the corporate tax to build out those facilities. Care for the elderly, children care facility, owning local hospitals, no corporate tax. And then in Budget 2026, we are pointing to specific initiative where you don't need to come back now. You can invest in it and earn. The fertilizer plant, 1. 2, the bottling plant, the gas bottling plant. 3, we have the building out of consortium. And when we increase that list of opportunities that will be added to local content, that's another opportunity that is ahead of us.
And that goes
So
back to Guyanese having equity.
Guyanese having equity, and the diaspora, we have always made clear, has equal access and equal opportunity to everything that we're building out for the local economy, local Guyanese, and also persons living in the diaspora.
And I'm very happy you've said that, because many times when I'm addressing diaspora issues, I get asked this question: well, where is the government's diaspora policy? And I've had to constantly remind persons that government's policy in all the sectors is inclusive. You don't need a special policy to get a house lot or to get a passport or to come back and get a job. You have just as much an opportunity. That's
and there's
equal.
no preferential
There's
treatment.
no preferential treatment for that, and I love that. I can give you 2 examples. For example, I remember several years ago there was a gentleman who in the technical service came to my office and practically was in tears. He was at the point of checking in his investment because he said he's frustrated. We encourage him, stay on, let's work through the hurdles. That was several years ago, I think about 2022. And when I see him now, he's all smiling, and he said to me that his business in Guyana is actually paying his expenses in his host country. That's how incredibly well he's doing. We've seen a lot of other diaspora.
And not cutting you, Rosalina, but I'm sure Kiana would know too, because she's like me. We like eat on the road. That's our favorite pastime. Yeah. Many food businesses, and this is not a fancy restaurant. Many ordinary food businesses are owned by Guyanese from the diaspora now.
Yes.
Today I met with 4 different groups. that is telling me they're
I
doing.
was once again, he's from the diaspora.
Yeah, but you're in a different level of the market. Yeah, you're in a different level of the market, right, Ivan? So, and I enjoy your food. But it's just that, look, these are ordinary Guyanese living who came back and they've gone into that level of business and are finding it highly successful, right?
And I love the fact that they can come back and because we have a lot of stories and testimonies that we can share with the public, and we've shared this in our diaspora outreach. Mr. President, we have seen huge interest from the diaspora to return to Guyana, literally return to live and to work. And what would you tell them for 2026 are the major areas that they can expect government will be performing at its very height and will be pushing towards that they can just observe and be a part of that? We know what we're looking at we'll be analyzing the budget, and then we're going to take pieces of it that's important to them, that information, sharing it with them. Usually when we share that information, they often say, we didn't know that the government of Guyana is doing these things.
You see, the problem comes back to fundamental is reading. So, take for example, we launched this project for hinterland airstrip to finance and build. You may have a group or consortium who can come and work with the local contractors to provide the financing and build the airport and at the interest rate. Many persons in diaspora will tell you they're managing funds. Here's an opportunity to deploy that management of whatever fund you're managing with the local contractor. That's open to the public. It's a public expression of interest. Take another example, the LETEM development. If you have 500 persons in the diaspora who can come together in a consortium and raise the fund for that development of that new airport and everything around it that we're going to put, whether it's 2,000 acres of land. Like the diaspora from India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, China, you name it, South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, many of their large transformative projects driven by a consortium of the diaspora coming together, wanting to take the risk, making a calculated decision that this is a business. It will have risk, but we have to invest in that risk. And that is where I think a lot of emphasis must be placed.
I think to government's credit, you have been removing a lot of these risks, basically, and putting policies in place. I would encourage these consortiums to come in and to invest, and even in the skills transfer, what is in the vocational element under the Ministry of Education, or in the diasporic investment category. I think it's fantastic what you're doing there. But we certainly look forward to fleshing out a lot of Budget 2026 to the diaspora. You're likely to see quite a lot of interest this year from them in several regards.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. So, for the questions and commentary as well. And I also want to extend thanks to all the other women who have provided, I know, inspiring stories about how you have just taken charge of your life and how the government's initiatives are also supporting the dreams that you have for being part of Guyana's development story. I am personally really touched. So thank you for sharing those stories.
Thank you, guys. But in this discussion, is there anything you think we should address or is on your mind in your different portfolios that you would like us to address before we say goodbye for now?
I think the area of public accountability is an interesting one for a lot of people.
So that's an important area, and you will see a lot of emphasis being placed on public accountability. But public accountability is about systems, removing human biases, making things more predictable, rule-based, and that is what is important. How do we build out the systems? That is why today's solution is driven by technology, is driven by AI, and that is what we're deploying. We're deploying tomorrow's technology today, the level of technology that we are applying. And let's give you a simple example. And Rosalinda, you should know this one because you live next to it. We have just established a government service center in Lenora. Things that used to take people 3 and 4 weeks, going from Region 3, 8 and 9 times in those 3 weeks, is now completed in minutes.
That is correct.
whether it's marriage certificate, death certificate, birth certificate, passport, GRA services. I just saw the report on Sunday. The average time for a transaction is 4 minutes 35 seconds.
That's incredible.
And that is because of the technology, building more accountability, and having on my a dashboard system now, where people understand that it not human, the system will evaluate your performance now. So it's system based, and we also have to move to to delivery type of incentivizing in the system. Now, take for example the cameras. The cameras would have issued tens of thousands of tickets. This one technology, nobody, technology deployed, your speed, regardless of who you are, you get the ticket. The ticket comes to your phone or to your address. You don't pay it, you get the code sample. Simple. You pay it, you can pay it electronically. Any one of you had a ticket so far?
No.
It's okay,
No.
Gina, you can say yeah.
Maybe.
Right? So, I give you an example. Someone was coming down the road the other day, and they were part of the a team coming down. We had an international team that's coming down, and the person got a ticket, and they were telling me how efficient the system was. That in minutes they got the notification, and they paid, and right away the notification comes back. So I'm very happy none of you got a ticket, but you can try getting one and see how the system works.
Mr. President, I just want to, commend the efforts that are being taken for government efficiency. I think we have seen improvement. I can tell you that. I look forward to further improvement because, the reality is it still takes quite some time to get certain business done, but you can see the improvement. And I must say, for the first time in my life, I visited Georgetown Hospital a few weeks ago, and I got through in 15 minutes. Well, the very next day, I visited a private hospital. It took me half a day.
And we get a lot of those comments.
So,
But Gina, all you guys are professionals. You know the biggest thing to change is culture. And this will take time. So yes, we are having these improvement, tons of improvement, but there is still a lot to be done. Look at the Auditor General report, and we have to look at the facts. You will see a reduced number of issues, and you will see a deliberate attempt being made to correct and fix all of the challenges and issues. So let me give you a simple example. In mining, we say I don't care how much gold you make. I'm happy if you're successful. All I'm asking, and the government is asking, declare the goal and pay the taxes. We have to take strong enforcement measures. Where we found hundreds of persons with zero declaration, but guess what? They have 5 excavators working. They've opened up large extent of land. So we say to them, it makes no sense, let's save you this problem. It makes no sense for you have to have 5 excavators and open up all of this land and making no gold. It's just damaging the environment. So we want people to be compliant. So accountability is also about all of us getting on the compliance mechanism and making the system work.
and I was going to add too is just, with this whole effort by government to improve government services, I think we need to push private sector to improve their services as well. And you also talk about all of us getting involved, and I think one particular area that I've got a pet peeve about is garbage in the city and how it is. So I think private sector, while government is doing what they can, I think we've got to play a bigger role in ensuring that we keep our city clean. Yeah.
And Gina, you raise an important point. When you want to build a national system, it has to be national standards.
Yes.
Not government alone, government, private sector, and everything else. It has to be a comprehensive ecosystem at work.
Mr. President, I'm not sure if coming out in the budget we will see that happen, but Minister Vinaya will push in for the private sector to kind of take on what she has created with the BMI Peer Center.
And that is what we want.
Right, so I have been reaching out to my members to say to them, you see that little room that you have there, you can remove those old furniture, remove those equipment, and you can create a safe space with the help of experts so that, safety will be there. members want to get on board. I know for me this is CSR, so it shouldn't even be about that. But just to help those managers and owners to support women and even men who want a space for the children to be, because we know once you know where your child or children is, you're going to give extra work to your employer rather than you got to leave to go pick them up. So is there any incentive for companies?
So that's the co-investment.
Yeah.
That's the co-investment that we're talking about, where government will help to create that space, but in exchange we have to have rates that are affordable. And I can assure you that you women and a lot more will be part of this process, because government can't implement all of these massive transformation alone. You need the firepower behind you.
And that's my last, if I may. I raised this the other day with a diplomat who invited me to have some tea with her. I guess
That gotta be a British person.
And during the conversation, something came up, and I was telling my other colleagues who were there that what I want for my country, what I wish if I had a special stick that I can give to my country, is for us to have patience in our development, for us to have a heavy sense of patriotism and love for country, right?
But Kathy, not cutting you. I was having tea with a diplomat, and I said, and a person from the country, a very, very senior person from the country, was giving me a story. He said, you know, Mr. President, we made enormous improvement this year in the time taken for utility connection and construction permit for a large-scale project industrial development. We made enormous improvement. I said, that's great. So how much time is it now? He said, we reduced it from 14 years to 10 years.
Oh.
You can research it. They reduced it from 14 years to 10 years. Large-scale industrial development. And sometimes, you know, we have to take the lectures with a pinch of salt.
Indeed.
Mr. President, I have just a quick question. Wearing my AmCham hat, on what extra measures, and maybe eventually would stimulate foreign direct investment in terms of those companies, you know, coming into Guyana and investing, having the confidence to come here. What signals that our doors are open?
Well, the first signal is that there is no differentiation or differential. However, we encourage them highly to have a local partner. So there is no differentiation in our policy, and here is where we are different from most persons in this region and outside of this region. The only thing we have is that local content legislation that is good for our country and good for them, because they need to understand our culture, they need to understand our ecosystem, and they need to have part of their system the willpower to build around us. So I would say that whatever is in the budget for local businesses, there also for their businesses, but we want to see local businesses involved in this process.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think what we've gathered from this very insightful discussion here is that the government is determined to invest in its people, and I think it's important that we all rally around that message. It's important to bet on ourselves because we have the potential and we have the capability to do what is necessary to develop this country and take it where it needs to be. And importantly, Mr. President, I also want to thank you for facilitating this discussion. This is not the first, second, or third time you have allowed an all-women panel to have a discussion with you. And I think it signals that you are indeed a champion of ensuring women are at the table, literally and figuratively. So thank you for now being synonymous with that trend in addition to your love for cooking.
No, I believe strongly that you guys are doing enormous work. Not believe, I know. I've seen. I'm in a seat where I see. And I know who are the talkers and who are the doers in our country by now. And I embrace those who are willing to follow up the talk by doing. And each of you have spoken for yourself by your action. You know, all of you have led major projects, major personal, public, major institutions, and so on. So I look forward to have these type of conversations, but more importantly, to have a deployment of your collective effort as we continue to move forward and build a strong, stable, prosperous country for every Guyanese. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
President.
It was my honor. Thank
Yes,
you.
and thank you as well for joining us for this special sit-down conversation on the National Budget 2026 and, of course, other issues that are important to national development.
Good night, Guyana.